When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap. As always, I am your host, Colleen Biggs, and I am just melting over here. I'm just going to admit, we are dead summer now. So all of you are feeling the heat, and I have seen so many Instagram stories and posts about people going to cooler places to hang out for the summer, especially if you live where I do in Arizona. Or where our guest Randi Deckard lives in Texas. You're melting because we're in monsoon seasons. There's some humidity. The heat is sweltering, I guess is the right word to say. And I just don't like going outside. And so I know Arizona gets a bad rap, but I'm just here to tell you that we're no different than any state in the winter that has horrible winters that are cold and icy and they're below zero, which I visited those places before, and 17 below zero. It's not tolerable. So you stay indoors. We do the same thing in the summer here. In Arizona, I was telling Randi, I go from an air-conditioned house to an air-conditioned car to an air-conditioned building, and then do the same thing in reverse. And I really just don't frolic outside much. I love it when people are like, "You're from Arizona. Why aren't you super tan?" I'm like, "You go lay out in that heat." I'm not going to do it. I know I'm not going to do it. So we're going to get into owning your journey today. You know, this podcast was designed specifically, and I did this on purpose, because so many individuals out there still kind of have the wool pulled over and they think they've been dealt a hand and this is what life is. They don't realize, and if this is you, I just want you to listen up, because if you're hearing this, you're meant to hear it today. And maybe Randi and I are the ones to give you that message, that you do have a choice and you do create the life around you, and you can make changes to your life to make it better. So we're going to talk about how do you own your journey today. Randi's got some really great stories. I love stories to share today. But before we get to Randi, I want to thank our sponsor of today's show, Paige Morlino Real Estate. Choose excellence in real estate with Paige Morlino, a seasoned 8-year Arizona realtor at Realty One. Grounded in core values of honesty, transparent communication, meticulous detail, and unwavering commitment, she brings true value to every home journey. As a full-time and full-service agent with a vast network, Paige leverages diverse avenues and masterful marketing, ensuring each property and client receives the attention they deserve for a successful and rewarding real estate experience. Elevate your real estate venture with Paige today. And there's a link below for you to instantly check your home's estimated value. I'm checking it all the time because, for a while there, they were up really, really high, and then they dropped, and now they're going back up. So your home's value is very important. And if you own a home, I would just click on the link and check it out. And if you don't live in Arizona, that's not a problem, because she says she's very connected and can get you connected with a really great real estate agent that's trustworthy. I think today that's kind of a big focus, and honest, because I hear in 2025, rates are coming down. We should just have this background of, rates are coming down. I mean, I don't know about Randi, but I'm in my 50s. And when I bought my first house in the early 90s, like maybe 92, it was probably like 8 or 10% or something really, really high.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, it's whatever, back then. But today, it hit 6 or 7 and everyone's freaking out because we were at 2. I was freaking out when we were at 2. I was like, they're just giving away money. This is insane. So I don't think real estate agents are telling me they don't think they'll ever see those rates again for a long, long time, if ever. So start getting comfortable understanding that high 5s, 6s, 7s, that's going to be the more I would say median moving forward. And remember, commercial real estate lags behind that just a little bit. So if you're looking at commercial real estate, wait a little while because those rates come down and they follow residential real estate, which a lot of individuals didn't know, especially if you're an investor in commercial real estate. Okay, here we go with Randi Sue Deckard's career history. So her career trajectory is captivating story. We're going to learn some of that today of transformation and resilience. So transitioning from a clinical lab scientist to a GTM leader. Now, I don't know what that is either. We're going to ask her. Her journey is a testament to the power of embracing change and leveraging data-driven decision-making, which we're going to find out more about today. Her journey and expertise offer a unique perspective on navigating career transitions and overcoming fear, making her a compelling source of inspiration for those looking to own their journey, which we want to do today. Randi, welcome to today's show.
Thank you so much for having me, Colleen.
I'm really excited for this. So let's just start with the basic one. You transition from a clinical lab scientist. Tell us a little bit about the clinical lab scientist, because I've seen them on movies, but I don't really know what they do.
Sure. So I worked in a lab. I started out doing research, but I was considering going back to medical school for forensic pathology.
Mm-hmm.
So think like NCIS, where they're doing things
Nice.
Behind the scenes for like crime. And I have 100 autopsies under my belt because I was serious about this. And
you performed autopsies?
I assisted.
Okay.
So I am not a pathologist, but I assisted because of my background. I'm also trained as a pathology assistant. So I assisted in 100 autopsies.
I don't think I could do that. Could you?
I'm so much fun at family dinners.
Oh, did you? I mean, when they had us dissect the frog, many people my age remember that back in school. And I was like, This is not fun.
Yeah. So I was the kid, grew up in a rural area, both in Canada and overseas. But I was the kid when it was time to deal with the cattle. Can I have the eyeballs?
Okay.
And I would pull them apart because I was curious. I was always fascinated, not a psychopath way, but absolutely
curious. I love that
about
word,
how things worked.
Mm-hmm. So autopsies for you then were like, oh, okay, well, this is no big deal. Like I've been doing this as a kid. I'm super curious. I'm even more curious now. So as a clinical lab scientist, what was your main focus and for how long did you do that?
Yeah, so I was a clinical lab scientist for about 15 years, and I did multiple things. I did research, I worked in regular labs. So, you go get a blood test. I would be one of the ones behind the scenes performing those tests. I actually ran labs of up to 300 people. And, throughout all of that, like the main thing that I did was, focused on quality and of lab testing, and then also like my leadership skills. Like I said, at one point I was director over a lab, and so it's not just managing people, but there's healthcare and is heavily regulated. And as you can imagine, you want something like that to be accurate because you don't want to get a wrong diagnosis. And I think one of the things that most people can relate to is whether it's something like HIV, like you don't want to give a patient a diagnosis that they're positive unless they're truly positive, right?
Yeah.
So accuracy and attention to detail were just part of my DNA in everything I did, from research to assisting in autopsies, because obviously to give the family closure, but also in criminal cases, making sure that the evidence would stand up in court.
Yeah, that's a big piece of what happens in the end. So you went to a GTM leader. What is a GTM leader? I've never heard that before in like all my years.
So I think every industry has their acronyms. Healthcare has their acronyms, sales has their acronyms. So GTM is go to market. And all that means is a go to market leader is someone who has, responsibility for driving and attracting business as well as keeping business. And so there are different areas of the go-to market. You have pre-sales, whether that's
Mhm.
marketing, brand awareness, you have the actual sales process, and then you have post-sales, customer success, keeping the customer, the loyalty part of it. And then there's also like the financial aspect, like how much it costs, your business unit economics. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's the go-to market leader.
Okay, that is a huge shift from being a clinical lab scientist. So what happened? Give us the bridge on.
Yeah. So my pathologist mentor and my husband, both approached it from two different ways. My forensic pathologist mentor was like, Randy, you have way too much personality to hang out in the morgue with me. Like you're smart, like I know you're dedicated, but you are such a people person. Are you sure this is what you want to do? And my husband all along had been saying to me, have you thought about sales? And I was like, I have this degree. I'm an advanced research
Mm,
clinical scientist. I can't do that. Like I had this
the
attitude.
pitfall. I went to school all these years for this degree.
Black and white. And literally, look
Mhm.
at what I'm wearing today. I'm serious.
Yeah.
It was like I was just set, like I tunnel vision. Like I went to school for this. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And both between the two of them and people that I really respected and admired, I removed the blinders. And then I just started looking, and all of a sudden, there were all these doors or avenues that I could step through. And the first door that I stepped through was a startup in North Texas. I
Mhm.
was one of the first 10 employees. And guess who I was selling to? Pathologists. Well, who knew pathologists?
Yeah.
Randy, because she wanted to be one and hung out with them. And so the first year, they gave me a quota and I blew it out of the water. And I was like, oh, this is easy because it's just conversations. And I know I'm oversimplifying, but because I understood how a pathologist spoke, thought, and what their day to day was, it was
Mhm.
really easy for me to have a conversation and open that door.
Yeah. And that's what sales is. I think
Yes.
there's still this kind of old belief that it's this sleazy because there are still some that exist.
Mhm.
And they'll come to my door and knock, and I'm like, I am so behind you and supporting you on knocking on doors. But today I'm not the buyer, you know? And when I tell someone no, and I'm like, I know exactly what I want when I want it, and how much
Sure.
bandwidth I have for something, if it's the right time or not the right time. And when they don't give up, I'm like, okay, bro, this is the end of the line right now. I'm being very, very kind. And I love it when people are out there knocking doors and having those conversations because I think that's a great thing. If you don't know about something, it's a great way to find out about something. And then for me, sales is building long lasting relationships with people. It's building relationships. And there are still those people out there that feel like sales is you've got to get to everybody in the room, networking, you've got to talk to every single person. And I'm finding like two people, throughout that evening that are people that I want to connect with and build relationships with and have conversations with and maybe do things with or talk with later or meet up for coffee later. I don't To me it's not that sleazy like this conversation is only going to be happening because I want it to be transactional in my
Mhm.
favor.
Right. And everything you said, I'm nodding my head, but I'll just add that's why I resisted for so long, right?
Yeah.
Especially my husband from the get-go when he had been saying you should be in sales, I 100% resisted because I had this vision or thought of what a salesperson was. And you're 100% correct. It's about a relationship,
Yeah.
it's about long term. and it's about quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And the reason I got into healthcare in the first place is I wanted to help people, right? I initially got into research to help people. And this is no different. And in fact, I feel with sales, I get to help on a larger scale because I'm not just helping that individual, I'm helping them and their organization. And that reframe or just changing the way
Mm.
I thought made all the difference. And in the past like 2 years, I read a book by Andy Paul and Selling Without Selling. And I was like, yes, that's me. Because it's always, I always
Mhm.
say sales is just a conversation. You're making this way
Yeah.
too hard.
Yeah.
And you have to understand your buyer and talk like your buyer. And sometimes the timing's not right or it's not for them.
Mhm.
Okay. But build a relationship because you never know when the timing might be right, whether it's
Yeah.
at that organization or they move on. But if you're short-sighted and transactional, as you mentioned, you're
Yeah.
never going to build those long-term relationships and have some of those seeds bloom
Yeah.
in the future.
And it can be as long as 20 years. And I know people
Oh
don't like
my
to hear that,
gosh.
but
Yes.
I was sitting next to someone yesterday at a networking event, and her name was Michelle. And she said, 20 years ago, I met this individual and we helped them with a house. And then she said, little touch points here and there over the 20 years, they referred some people to us. And then she said, before you know it, they reach out and they're like, okay, we're ready to sell again and we want to buy another house and we want you to help us. And she's like, 20 years later, because I just stayed connected with them, put some touch points in there. And I think that's the most important thing is we need to remember the buyer buys on their timeline, not the seller's timeline. And I think sales, when it's forced, it's the seller's timeline. Like, you've got to buy it from me now because I have quotas and I'm going to bug you, and I'm going to shove it
Yeah.
down your throat. And it's like, no, 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 no. We're on my timeline. And you're right. I think it's changing. I think that cliche is changing. But I wanted to ask you the question, how you said you leverage data-driven decision making.
Yeah. So one of the things that helped me really accelerate
Mhm.
everything that I did from that moment was my scientist background. So, and as a research scientist, writing down your processes, and then once you do an experiment, looking at the data, what worked, what didn't work, what's the one thing that I should try? Because in experiment, you can only pull one lever at a time because otherwise, how do you know? Was it the
Yeah.
temperature? Was it the chemical? Whatever. Applying those same principles to my process, it was like, okay, this is how I want to approach a conversation. And like I call them frameworks, not playbooks. And then where I had success, why did I have success? And
Yeah.
obviously, for some people it was timing, but for other people there's patterns in that data that's like, oh, if I could repeat this and find more of this, I can have more success. And
Mhm.
so from the very get-go, literally taking this process and data-driven decision making on what I should do next and constantly iterating, because that's what you do in science is you fail
Yeah.
forward every time with an
Mhm.
experiment, right? That's what I did in my process as an account manager that first year is I just kept failing forward. Every time I learned something, how can I apply that? So it was always
Yeah.
about getting better and improving. And that comes back to that quality,
Mhm.
process improvement. And I that's how I broke the revenue goals. And then they were like, well, if you can do that and you've never done it before, could you teach a team to do it? I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, I got it all right here. And that was really what helped me is like I didn't have to sit down at that point and go, oh, how am I going to teach a team how to do this? I had everything that I needed. It was just a matter of transferring that knowledge that I'd already written down. And then,
Yeah.
there's also, I think, an individual component to sales. You have to bring your authentic self. And I
Mhm.
think one of my other great gifts in being a people person is I love coaching. And for me, there's a difference between a coach and mentor, but coaching for me and being a leader is bringing the best out in that person, even if they
Yeah.
don't see it themselves.
Yeah.
And I think you even said it earlier, like having that belief in yourself so you can
Yeah.
do something when we were talking before we started. And that's so important because sometimes people can't see it in themselves. And
Hmm.
so I think that's one of my gifts and superpowers that anyone that I've worked with is that I love to coach and show them that they can do it because I believe in them.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to watch the transformation when they start believing in themselves and taking action, and being more proactive on their own because you know that's when they believe in
Hmm.
themselves as well.
I love
It's
to hear you talk about it as coaching and not managing, because
yes.
mm, I would say most of the time, someone in a leadership role in corporate America would call it management or leadership or all these other, and you say, I'm coaching them to bring out the best in them. It's no different than dropping our children off at baseball with a coach or
Mhm.
soccer with a coach or ice skating with a
Yeah.
coach. They're helping them with the skill sets and bringing out the best in what they see they're capable of doing, and really helping them see that for themselves as well. And I've had some great mentors over the years, and mentors give great advice, right?
Yes.
But I don't think coaches necessarily are just advice givers. You know, they're
No.
there to really help you draw out the areas that you yet don't see in yourself, or maybe you're not as confident with what you see in yourself. So, when we talk about owning your journey, I own my journey, every part of my journey. And I
Mhm.
haven't always been this way. And I've talked a lot about it over the last 181 episodes on my podcast about not always owning my journey and the way it was before I really understood, like, hey, I do design my own life and I can make the changes whenever I want. And there were times in corporate America where I was just scared to lose my job, and it never even the thought never even came to me, like, oh, you could just go get another one. Like that
Mhm.
thought never came to my mind. And now it's like, well, I think I'm pretty much unemployable because I don't want to work for anybody anymore. I really love the freedom and knowing that I can create income, go on vacation. There's all these different things I can do, own a business if I want, hire employees if I want, make a change in the company if I want. I love that freedom to be able to do that quickly without the slow red tape. Um, so for owning my own journey, for me, it means to have that freedom, and own that these decisions are mine. Well, for
Right.
you, Randy, what does owning your journey
Owning
mean?
the journey for me is about, I would say similar, and it's controlling the controllables, right? So there
Yeah.
are things that are in my control. And so it- I've never I've never allowed anyone to tell me or have an opinion about me, that I don't believe myself. So
Mm.
I'm open to feedback, but I also realize OPO, other people's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when I own my journey, it's like, yes, you can be a scientist and go to a go-to market leader. Right now, I'm over sales, marketing, customer success. And some people are like, I don't understand how you could do that, or, you didn't have SaaS background, or you didn't do this. And I'm here to tell you that, sometimes not having certain experience is even better. And I know what I'm capable of. If I can learn oncology and, anatomy and
Mm.
physiology and everything else, I'm not a dumb person. I'm a smart cookie, and I can apply things. And because I'm process driven, I like to, and I'm very curious, like to figure out how all things work.
Mm-hmm.
Often when I come in, like I'm the person pointing out all the things that I think are obvious, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize that." And I think that sometimes people think, well, because I haven't done that, I can't speak up. That has never been me. Now I will observe and say, hey, have we thought about this? And maybe there's a reason for it. And I'm all ears, like if they have a response. But I think too many people hang back and don't put themselves out there. So for me, it's about being fearless, trying things, even if it scares me, because what's the worst thing that can happen? I fail. Okay, what did I learn? As long
Mhm.
as I am improving, I'm good with me.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not for everyone, and I'm totally cool with that too. And that's part of owning my own journey too, is that Randy's not for everyone. She's cool with that because next I
Mhm.
know a ton of people who are.
Mhm.
And I think it also comes down to the difference between self-confidence and self-worth. Self-confidence typically comes from other people giving you feedback and so you're confident from things you've done and accomplished. But self-worth is knowing who you are at your core, regardless of whatever's going on. So just because I'm a go-to market leader, does that mean that every quarter or every annual that I've knocked it out of the park from a revenue perspective? Absolutely not. And anyone who is in this field who says, "Oh, I've always been over quota," I'm gonna say, how is that possible? Because there's ups and downs in businesses, product market fit, you name it. I just don't believe it.
Show me
But
the
just
data, right? Show me the data.
show me the data. But just because you have failure doesn't
Yeah.
mean you are a failure, right?
Right. Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
but I think some people internalize that. And
Yeah.
so owning your journey to me is knowing your self-worth
Yeah.
and believing in yourself and putting yourself out there and investing in yourself and doing hard things, because we are all capable of doing things. It's like, but choose your hard. You can choose to stay at a job that you hate, or you can go out on your own because you have a certain talent. When the kids were little, I had a six-figure jewelry business. I'm a metalsmith and glass artist. I went back to corporate America because I wanted healthcare for my family. Healthcare in the US is expensive. My husband is psychologically unemployable, so I totally get what you said, but that's a choice I made,
Yeah.
right?
For sure.
And so that's also part of owning it, is like knowing your why and self-worth, I think, are so critical.
Yeah. You nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. It's exactly what it takes to own your
I
own
got fired
journey.
up.
Yeah. I just let you go, girl. You were on fire. I love it because you're so passionate about it. And it's obvious that those that you're coaching and leading are better for it to have you leading them, right? For sure. Because you really are passionate about them wanting to own their journey as well. And the more we have that autonomy to do that, the better off and more productive we're going to be, the happier we're going to be. And mood matters as
Mhm.
an individual. And like you said, failure is not you're a failure. Failure is whatever happened failed. That's
Yep.
it. I love that. That was good. It was a great nugget to take from today. So I know, Randy, some people are like, how do I reach out to her? I want to connect with her, especially probably on LinkedIn. I would imagine everyone in that world is on LinkedIn. I was on LinkedIn forever, and then it's just expanded into my entrepreneurial world. So is LinkedIn a good place for us to reach out
Yeah,
to you?
LinkedIn is 100% the best
Yeah,
place to get a hold of me,
good.
100%.
And we have that link below. It's Randi Sue Deckard with an I, Randi with an I, Randi Sue Deckard. So you'll be able to click on that link and just let her know you heard her story, and maybe you want to connect with her, or who knows what you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for a mentor. But I would love for you to connect with Randi. She's so fun to have a conversation with, and to go from a child wanting to dissect eyeballs to all the way to a GTM leader that she is today, and a wonderful coach that's drawing out the best in people. I mean, really, honestly, that's got to be a dream come true for you to be able to say to yourself, I know I own my own journey, and I'm good with that.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what we want for all of you too. And remember, you're the only you that's ever been, and you're the only you that's ever going to be. This is your journey, not anybody else's journey. It drives me crazy that people, are people pleasers and they're so concerned about other people. And it's like, what about you? This is your journey. What do you want out of life? What do you want out of this journey on earth? And I think owning your journey is a really great place to start in looking at, am I happy with my current journey, and does there need to be some change? Just ask yourself that question today. And if you could, I had some exercises journaling this morning, and the book I'm reading said, if you had five years to live, what would you do different in your life today for the next 5 years? That's always a little bit of a wake-up call in the moment, on what I would do and what I would do differently. And I've lost some friends lately to cancer, and they didn't have 5 years to live out the rest of their life. They had 6 months. And so what does that look like for your life? Are you dying saying, I'm happy with what I did with my life and who I was with and who I inspired and who I am as a person? How proud I am of that? Or do you need to work on owning your journey? That's what today's episode was about. And we're so happy Randi was here today to tell us a little bit more about her journey and her stories that inspire us. Of course, I'm totally inspired by what she had to say in her journey. And I was curious a lot about when she talked about being in a morgue, and I had to dive into that more, and I'm sure you were curious too. So Randi, thank you for being so honest today. Thank you for being transparent and open and inspiring our listeners.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, until next time, don't forget, be you and be strong. Bye-bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed our show today, as our guests shared their secrets on designing their life by taking the necessary leaps to expand their influence and attract the right people and clients into their lives. To start these easy steps for yourself, be sure to visit www.colleenbiggs.net/freebies to download the 7 ways to increase your exposure today.